Good evening, everyone. Good evening, TCU. I want to welcome you all in for a special concluding event for Black History Month. My name is Brandon Kitchin, proud alumni of TCU class of 2018. Now, professionally, I might serve as a coordinator over at SMU in our Social Change and Cultural Engagement office, but don't be mistaken, because even though I work for the rival, I am a proud Horned Frog, and I will always be your Mr. TCU 2018. And so tonight I have the great honor of serving as this moderator for this panel discussion. All right, today we will examine the past. We're going to mine it for insights, and we're going to look to a future of expanded Black leadership here at TCU. With me today are three special guests who all happen to be among the first at TCU. Now, before I introduce them, I just want to give a little bit more context to why this panel came to be. TCU did not welcome people from all races as students until January 23rd, 1964, when the university was 91 years old. And integration has not been one seamless step either. Now, at 149 years old, TCU is still collecting first. In this academic year, the presidencies of the Student Government Association and the Graduate Student Senate are, for the first time, held by Black people. Every time someone stepped into the role of being the first, they opened doors for others to follow. The very first Black students on campus found themselves in an environment that was and remains primarily white. The first Black students had to navigate the usual pressures of college while also overcoming challenges that other students may not have had to endure or even have imagined. Right? We wish we could have invited everyone who played a vital role by being a first in terms of Black history at TCU. But we'd be here till 11 o'clock at night just doing that. You saw the wonderful video that was put together by our own Amy Peterson here at TCU. But we will read their names in honor of how they made TCU better for all who would follow. So everyone I'm about to say was a first Black individual in some right at the university. Veda Felder, class of 1954, graduate of Bright Divinity School. Eileen Jones, class of 1963, bachelor's degree graduate and professor. Also in the class of 1963, Doris Ann McBride Guree. Anthony Pregler, class of 1969, Army ROTC member. Ronnie Hurdle, class of 1971, cheerleader at TCU and the first Black cheerleader in the Southwest Conference. Homecoming Queen, Jennifer Giddings Brooks, class of 1971 and class of 1974. And Homecoming King, Yender Reese, class of 2007. I'd also like to acknowledge the TCU Alumni Association, TCU Magazine, and the Office of Social Media Management for coming together to create this special session of TCU Presents. And now the moment y'all have all been waiting for, our panelists. So our first guest is Miss Leslie Ekpe, and she's the president of the Graduate Student Senate here at TCU. She's a third-year doctoral student in the Higher Educational Leadership Program, and she's from Louisville, Texas. She intends to join the professorate in higher education after graduating. Leslie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for creating the space. I'm really excited to get started on this conversation. So thank you once again.
You're welcome. Our second guest is Mr. Laurent Honeycutt. He's a junior marketing major at TCU, and he serves as the president for the Student Government Association. He is a native of Huntsville, Alabama, and he ran his campaign with the theme, "Let's Do More." He hopes, after graduation, to become an executive in the television industry. Laurent, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be a part of this panel. It's going to be an exciting conversation.
Absolutely. And lastly, but surely not least, our final special guest, we have the pleasure of welcoming in Dr. James Cash. Dr. Cash became the first Black scholarship athlete in the Southwest Conference and at TCU. He was a two-time academic All-American, and he was our esteemed basketball player. He has a degree in mathematics at TCU, a master's in computer science, and a PhD in management information systems, both from Purdue. He spent 27 years as a professor at Harvard Business School and eventually became the first tenured Black professor there. and today he has a Harvard building named in his honor. Dr. Cash is also the Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of Catalyst Partners Acquisition Corporation and Foundation. He's also part of the Boston Celtics ownership group. He's been on the board of directors for probably a large list of Fortune 100 companies to name, but it's definitely no exaggeration to say that Dr. Cash has rewritten American history and changed the course of both business and society. So, Dr. Cash, welcome, man. We're glad to have you.
Brandon, thank you so much. And I am so pleased to be here with Leslie and Laurent. This is quite an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And so just for everyone who's tuning in right now, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through YouTube, thank you, of course, for being here. Over the course of this discussion, please utilize the chat feature here, dropping your thoughts, your comments, and your questions. We're going to be mindful of time, so we'll keep things moving. Can't get to every question, but we do want to maybe add in a few. So just drop in what you're feeling as we go along. So let's dive in. My first question is for you, Dr. Cash, and it's a little bit historical in terms of your family and how you potentially got to TCU. All right, and your mother wanted to pursue an advanced degree at TCU, but at the time, TCU was segregated, and so she was not allowed to stay at the university. So factoring that in, why did you decide to choose to attend TCU, and how was the experience with your mom, a factor when making that decision?
Well, thank you, Brandon. Thank you. It's clear you've done some very good homework. For anybody who's walking on the first floor of the College of Education, you can actually see a picture of my mom on a wall that is labeled Shifting Perspectives at the COE. Under the chronological heading of 1840s to 1850s. As you said, she and a number of other Black elementary school teachers wanted to get advanced education. They thought TCU had the best school, but they were not permitted on campus. And candidly, there were a couple of professors, the one in particular was Sandy Wall, that came off the TCU campus and actually taught these Black teachers at an elementary school near downtown Fort Worth. That was the first exposure I had to the fact that TCU was willing to violate social norms. And that doesn't mean everybody was lined up that way, but at least there were people like Dr. Wall who thought that depriving Blacks of advanced education was inappropriate for a whole range of reasons. He couldn't overcome the constraint of having people come onto campus, but he did his part. Long story short, my mother eventually got her master's degree, excuse me, in education from TCU in 1965, which actually was the same year that, as you correctly mentioned, I became the first person to sign an athletic scholarship in what was then called the Southwest Conference. Schools that we think of today, University of Texas, University of Arkansas, SMU, Texas Tech, Baylor, Rice, were all in the conference. And again, no Black athletes. There was a young man that started at SMU in football by the name of Jerry Levias the same year. But I'm so proud of the school and the courage that it showed to violate the Jim Crow laws that existed at that point.
And just to kind of follow up, as you were coming into your own experience as a student athlete at TCU, what was that like for you? I'd probably put it bluntly, segregation, right, was still clearly much, the idea of first was probably scary. And so how did you navigate that? And who was your support system?
Well, again, this was 1965, so the Civil Rights Revolution had been running for a period of time. The image that many of you may have seen of the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge that was repeated a lot with John Lewis's recent death was literally a few weeks before TCU offered me the scholarship. And so what was going on in the country was a lot of civil rights activity. It was I felt like my responsibility to do my part. And my high school coach, my parents, and others clearly communicated to me that I was going to have to withstand the kinds of things that we could clearly see were going on in lots of other places. It was very clear in my first couple of years that we ended up on trips in the South that were set up before the visiting team or the team that invited TCU to play knew they were going to have a black member of the basketball team. One tournament in Mobile, Alabama in particular, I think of because my teammates would not eat in a restaurant because I was told that I had to go around and come through the back door. And they basically refused to stay in one hotel because I wasn't going to be permitted to be in there with them. And so that was what was going on at the time. But candidly, as I saw others having the experience, like the Edmund Pettus Bridge, what I thought I was going through was relatively mild, and I needed to do my part.
Well, thank you for accepting that torch for literally everyone else who came behind you. So now I want to bring it forward to present day for Laurent and for Leslie. What made you want to attend TCU? Did you know what to expect? And how would you compare that to maybe what you heard from Dr. Cash?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Brandon. And thank you, Dr. Cash, for sharing your story. It's remarkable how far we have come and how far we still have to go. So for me, I would say TCU chose me. And what I mean by that is when I was applying for my doctoral program, I ended up taking the GRE around 5 times. So the GRE is the general entrance exam for most master and doctoral programs across the nation. So this exam was in the way, I guess you can say, of my success. So I ended up taking this test a couple of times because I wanted to get into certain institutions. And what I did was I ended up applying to over 9 institutions for my doctoral program, and I got denied to every single one of them. This is after, going to school, receiving my bachelor's in management, going to school, receiving my master's in communication management, and also graduating with my MBA in business administration. So when we talk about holistic admissions, it's all there. It's all in front of us. However, there are still programs that say, we're looking at your application holistically, but they're really relying on that test score, which we know the test score is a barrier to success, especially for marginalized communities. And so I wasn't going to let that get in the way. So I found TCU. I actually applied to their master's program because I believe if I'm good at one thing, I'm good at getting a master's degree. So I said, you know what? I'm going to apply to their master's in higher education program. And I did just that. Well, Dr. Don Mills, who I credit for me being at TCU in every space I can, because he was the person that spoke up for me when every institution said no. He gives me a call and he lets me know, hey, we want to interview you. And I'm like, okay, this is all a part of the process. I'm excited. 3rd master's is a charm, right? Laugh with me. So I get up to TCU. I'm being interviewed by Dr. Mills, and he lets me know we're not going to accept you into the master's program, but what I will do is transfer your application over into the PhD program. And at this moment, I was excited, yet nervous, because I did not want to tell him, I don't believe my test scores will allow me to get admitted into TCU. And at that very moment, even me stating this with tears in my eyes, he told me I'm more than a test score. So I ran home, I applied. That was towards the end of February. And I received my admittance letter in March. So I say TCU chose me because it's individuals like Dr. Don Mills who said yes, who saw something in me that I very well did not see in myself at that moment, because so many institutions had already told me no. And so I'm honored, I'm thankful, and I look forward to cultivating more relationships so that one day I can say yes to individuals who have traditionally had the door closed on them multiple times. And so I credit him, and I'm so thankful. And now it's on me to do the same thing.
That's
Thank
great.
you, Leslie. Lauren, how about yourself?
I mean, that's I don't know how to follow up that amazing story, but it was very similar. When I was kind of touring a lot of colleges, I was really looking for some place that I could see myself being poured into. My mom and dad actually knew I should have gone to TCU a lot longer before I knew I should have. But it was in those moments of walking on campus that I really felt myself that I would be a part of something bigger than just my own. When I walked into TCU, I felt like I was going to be a part of a community that wanted me to succeed. People wanted to pour into me here. People, not just my faculty, but the upper administration, the students wanted you all to be better. And I was kind of crushed when I almost wasn't able to go here because of financial aid. But I talked to Dean Heath Einstein, and similar to Leslie, he upped my scholarship because he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And so it's the people like that that makes me so happy to go to TCU, so happy to wear purple every day of the week, because I know that somehow, somewhere, everything works out for a reason. And my reason was to come to TCU. And so that's kind of how I got here. I was a little chosen, just like Leslie as well.
Man, that's so powerful. Well, I appreciate both of y'all sharing your experience of how you became Horned Frogs. And so this great imagery, or this great, phrase that you used, Dr. Cash, was you wanted to do your part, right? So to Leslie and to Laurent, you are doing your part, whether you realized it or not, or maybe you did decide, I am chosen to be something bigger than just a normal student. And so you all took up the calling to, first of all, run for presidencies, or to put your name in the hat, and then you became president. So talk a little bit about how you came to that decision, and secondly, how your presidency has been going so far this academic year.
Yeah, completely. I think that I came to the decision my late freshman year. I was on the DEI committee here, and I just saw so many things that were so important for our student body, especially when it came to DEI issues. And I wanted to really dive into that, what that means for everyone here on campus. One of the best thing I did here was become the You Belong Here campaign, which is a week-long campaign centered around minority students feeling that they were actually a part of this institution on a grander scale, and just being here for, whether it's for athletics or for scholarships, and really being bought into the community. And so since then, I've always wanted to continue that leadership. And when I made that last step to be presidency, is because I felt like I wasn't able to do enough last year. So that's why the year before, as the committee chairman. So that's why my campaign was all about, let's do more. Let's continue to advocate. Let's continue to push the boundaries.
I love that. So for me, I was nominated into my position. So board members from last year of the Graduate Student Senate actually put my name up for the presidential role. And so this is towards the end of the spring semester last year. And so, spring semester can be crazy. You have a lot going on. You have a lot of tasks that you said you were going to complete in January, but some way, somehow they're still on your list in April. Am I talking to anyone? My dad would say, preach. So here I am. And at the same time, the board is, nominating me. And I didn't really know to a full capacity what that meant. I had served as the chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion that past year. And so I had that chair position. I was able to, speak with different constituents, speak with different graduate students, and base our initiatives off the objectives and the experiences of graduate students. But I didn't know all encompassing what the presidency held, but I surely was going to find out. I think that, when you've been called to do something, you can run away from it or you can run towards it. And because at the end of the day, when it's your calling, it's your calling. And so I was nominated. I put some things into action, but I also have to give a huge shout out to my board. They are amazing individuals, and they serve in different capacities across TCU. And it's such a beautiful thing to bring graduate students together whose voices usually do not get illuminated in the experiences at TCU because we're so undergrad focused, to be able to come together and say, this is what we're doing right. This is where the gaps need to be filled, right? And even if we don't put in action immediately, let's talk about it, because for so long we haven't discussed what needs to happen. And so I'm so blessed, so honored. We just had a Mardi Gras gala February 18th where over 100 graduate students showed up. It was a great time just for us to come together, have a great time, meet different constituents of the university. Tracy Williams was our keynote speaker, who was also the first Black alumni president for TCU. And so she was amazing. And I mean, just the experience has been one that I will never forget. We still have so much work to do, but I hope that my presidency is laying, the groundwork for us to continue to do the good things in the future.
Wow. Ooh, I'm fired up right now. Dr. Cash, let me ask you this question. What does it mean for you as a proud TCU alum to see these barrier breakers right here, like Leslie Laurent as the first Black president, but people along the way in between?
Yeah, well, I'm feeling that same energy you are, Brandon. It is just so energizing and inspiring to me to know that in addition to taking care of business in the classroom, they are willing to be servant leaders and step up and do these types of things that have great representation value for so many others that they will never speak to, but in fact will be inspired by what they're doing. Now, Leslie isn't aware, but I snuck in on one of the alumni things that she ran. Might have been, it's in the last couple of months. And I kept myself on mute. And I don't think I ever turned my camera on, but you should have seen me applauding and clapping and just so proud of you, Leslie, as you kind of did your thing. And I thought, wow, this is exactly what we need. And again, the same way, Laurent, for you to basically step into the role and be willing to do it. There are so many young people that I'll be able to kind of point to you and say, look, this is a shoulder you can stand on as you go forward. So I'm so indebted, Brandon, to both of them for, again, accepting the baton, first of all, but I can also hear that they're ready to pass it in a very inspirational way.
I know that's right. Absolutely. Woo. Yeah, I just need a second to just digest all this. But as we think about, where we came from, where we're going, and where we're headed to, it's important we really contextualize and understand our history, good and bad, right? And so that's what TCU has been doing through the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, right? So for a little more context for those who may not be familiar with the initiative, or RRI for short, it's exploring the university's historical connections to racism, to enslavement, and to the Confederacy. All right, and through this examination, it's looking at the past to inform the present, and it's just a great exercise for all of TCU to step back and to ponder the forces that have shaped who we are as a community. And so I know Laurent and Leslie have played huge roles in that and are probably dealing with that or talking about it every single day. So I just want to get some notes from you all on how RI is going, how are people responding to it on campus and in the community, and what can we continue to learn from it as we dig deeper?
Yeah, so I serve as the graduate student representative for Race and Reconciliation Initiative at TCU. And I just want to commend TCU for first taking the step. I think a lot of times we discuss what should happen, but then as institutions, we sit back and wait for another institution to do it and see how it plays out before we take a step, because no one wants to shine the spotlight on yourself, especially when you shine that spotlight on yourself, you see wrongdoings, right? That did not include individuals that you currently serve. So I say this, and I know it's cliche, but knowledge is definitely power. And that's something that was instilled in me from when I was a kid all the way until now. And so I think we cannot forget, even though we're working on DEI initiatives, we always have to remember where we came from, right? And so when I say knowledge is power, there was one time I and my ancestors would have not been afforded the opportunity to have that power, right? It was in the hands of someone else, right? There were barriers up that would not allow individuals in this room, all four of us, to be at TCU. So when you talk about, we have to remember our history, that is RRI. I have to give another shout out to Dr. Frederick Gooding, Dr. G, who is over the RI initiative. And one thing that he instills in us and continues to talk about is, we cannot stray away from telling history as it is, right? This is who we are, right? This is who we were, but this doesn't have to be who we are. Okay. And so within RI, there have been many great things that have come out of the initiatives. But I want us to remember, even when Dr. Cash was talking, I was just thinking about, he walked so we can run, right? So if that's the same thing that we're going to think about now, let's not forget our history. Let's talk about what needs to happen now. Let's look at our policies and practices back then, right? When we were segregated, and why do they still match in some areas of the institution, right? That's not progress, right? So this initiative allows us to take a deeper step, take a deeper, thinking process, and even move past the conversation. Oftentimes we have conversation and that's where it stops. But my goal and my wish for TCU is to definitely, it's not about, I talk about this in the article, Brandon, not about not being racist, not about not, covering these topics. It's about moving towards anti-racism, right? So let's move towards an anti-racist institution. And that means we got to read into our history. We got to know where we came from to know where we're going.
Yeah, Brandon, I got to jump in here because Leslie really hit on a couple of really important points, and there's something I want to emphasize as well. Leslie said knowledge is power, and that is true. But more important, the ability to act on knowledge is real power. And the great thing about what Leslie and Laurent are doing is they have put themselves in a position with the knowledge to actually take some actions that change the environment. And what I hope the entire audience, allies, those of us in the community understand is that these are our generals. These are people who have insight as a result of the positions they hold. And when they need us to step up and support them, we need to step up and do it. So as much as I like the phrase knowledge is power, I like even better when we're talking about a person who gains knowledge and is in a position to actually execute or take action based on that knowledge and really exhibit what I call power.
Yeah, I could not agree more with both of what you guys both said. In this year has always been kind of about how can we continue to push that idea of anti-racism. TCU has so much history that we have to overcome. Before this year on tours, we didn't even recognize that both of our founding are from Confederate Army, but we always recognized that we were the first college to have women allowed in the Southwest. And so even the small thing like that just shows the greater community what TCU's history is, the good and the bad. From there, we have to do a better job of just making sure that we're creating spaces for our students to feel safe. I mean, the RI community has done great things to show in the eyes of what TCU is, how we can fix the damages that are deep-rooted here. We opened up the Intercultural Center here at campus this year for our minority students, but it's also like, how can SGA even go deeper into building up relationships with our historically marginalized students as well? And so RI has been received so well by students wanting to take that reevaluation, that look deeper into the soul of TCU. And I think that's really great and warranted. But like Leslie said, we have to now go into action. What in our past is still haunting us? What are the skeletons that we still have left to unearth? How does this move beyond, Black students to Hispanic students to Native American students to LGBTQIA students? These are all issues that encompass what our university is, that we have so many identities that we need to see represented in spaces to really do that work.
Man, Laurent, you absolutely nailed that as well. Y'all, everyone's on this Black excellence today in the room. But
Brandon,
right,
can you add something to
absolutely.
that? So I know we talk about safe spaces, at the institution level and then as a society as well. But my challenge to the viewers and everyone that's watching this, your institution in general should be a safe space, right? So if you're saying there are only spaces in certain areas on campus that are cultivated as safe havens, we're not doing our job. We're not doing our due diligence in creating a more equitable space that wherever you are on campus, you should feel safe, right? Regardless of your race, your sex, where you come from, right? Because if we're talking about true inclusivity, which our motto is inclusive excellence, that's what inclusive excellence is. Anywhere on campus, I can strive to bring my characteristics to make sure that I am excellent. This is the highest point of attainment, right? So when we say there are certain spaces on campus that provide safe spaces, I want us to really look at that statement and say, why not the whole campus? What is it in one area that we're doing better than the other? And what are we lacking in one area versus the other? So I think it's deeper than saying safe spaces. We have the responsibility, everyone at TCU, alumni, students, faculty, staff, administration, to ensure that our biggest constituents, who are our students, are safe anywhere on campus, that they can go and be the best in whatever space or capacity that we offer on campus. And if we can't truly say that, then we haven't even talked about reaching where we need to be. We're not moving in the right direction. We're stagnant. Because if I only feel safe in the College of Ed, we have some problems. We need to talk about some things, right? So just challenge that thought as you're talking about safe spaces or safe havens on campus.
Thank you for that, Leslie. And just to kind of make it a little bit further, I think as someone who does diversity education for a career, to acknowledge the gaps, right, for any community is the right thing to do. We're no longer in a space and time where not knowing or not doing the action, right? As Dr. Cash and everyone said, the one thing is to know about it. Second thing is to act, right? And so by intentionally avoiding these conversations, though they might be really tough or really difficult or scary, it's the right thing to do. And people from all different identities, particularly our historically underrepresented, marginalized communities, recognize when you are attempting to learn, attempting to reshape your perspective, right? We all come from different walks of life, of backgrounds, of multiple identities. We don't just have one singular identity, right? So in one space, I can be safe, as Leslie mentioned, but in another space, I can't feel safe, right? So recognizing that everyone does have that experience, even if you think that's not true. So just to be willing to go to your neighbor, make that friend, make that connection, talk, ask questions, be humble. When Leslie mentioned earlier that spotlight, it is very sobering, but trust me, if you really consider yourself to be an ally and want to see TCU become the most possible inclusive community for everybody, just challenge you to do that work and humble yourself enough to be in a tougher conversation than what you might be used to. And so kind of moving on, we talk about this acquisition of knowledge and acting, right? Dr. Cash, I want to go back to you. You also were really integral in collecting knowledge and educating community, right? You played a role in the founding of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is outstanding. So just God bless you for that. What can you say about the importance of knowing Black history, which I want to emphasize is an essential part of true American history? And so, how can we lean on that to build a more just future?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that. I often say that is probably the most important volunteer activity I've had in my life. I like to think I've done a lot of community service, but without a doubt, excuse me, that is the most important. I actually was one of the founding, they call them advisors, for the museum. And part of my passion was based on the fact that I had just learned, I was probably in my 50s at that point, and it was the first time I learned about the Black Freedom Trail in Texas. And I thought, how can someone who thinks they've cared so much about Black history all their life, you know, I grew up obviously in Jim Crow South, so I had a lot of insight, that kind of stuff. How could I live this long and not know that that existed? And when you start answering that question, it's because there aren't easily accessible places that you can go and gather information in volumes that really help you piece together a point of view. And so it was very clear to me that, in fact, this was a critical thing to be developed. And the fact that it could be done under the umbrella of the Smithsonian provided an opportunity to avoid some of the political influence that could be thrown at other such initiatives. It also provided stable funding over the long term. And so literally, starting in 2004 until we opened it up in 2017, I worked as often as I could to try and help the institution get developed, and more importantly, make sure that there was an opportunity for people who couldn't physically get to Washington, D.C. to still have access digitally to the information that is contained there. The whole idea, my mother used to say, look, if the elevator's not working, walk up the stairs. And so there's always a need to find a way to provide access to those that can't physically get to a specific location or have access to some of the things that we know are so important. But Leslie has already said, you know, how can you really plot out where you're going if you don't know where you've been? And there's so much inspiration in learning and knowing where we've been that made it very easy for me to want to make that commitment. And again, I just want to reinforce, when I was growing up in Fort Worth, we would say something like, that Dr. Gooding is a bad man. And RI is an amazing initiative for someone like me. I could never have imagined that a project like that would have unfolded, even with the best of intentions around TCU. So I'm so proud of everyone. And I've done nothing, candidly, for that project other than an interview. But
that's a lot, Dr. Cash. That's a lot. Trust me.
Well, I am so proud of everyone that's putting in the work and basically accumulating, again, the knowledge that we will have to be able to move forward in a very progressive way, like Leslie and Laurent were talking about earlier. So I'll stop with that. It's you got me on a really hot topic.
Oh, yes, sir.
Knowing our history is so important.
No, Dr. Cash, I have to argue with you, which I hope is okay. I do believe you did something in establishing the RI initiative. Without you, without our history, which you are TCU's history, you are American history, you're more than Black history, we wouldn't be where we are today. So the RI initiative didn't spring out of, you know, okay, y'all, we have to learn about our history. You are our history. So we need to learn about you. We need to learn about where you came from. We need to learn about what did we not do to illuminate James Cash experience. It wasn't all roses. It wasn't all peaches, but being able to have the space to actually illuminate this initiative, that I would argue that stems from you.
Thank you.
Leslie, I want to pick your brain a little bit more, right? So this is a question I always wrestle with, is because there's been so much has happened, like on any given day, right? We live in this 24/7 world of events and history and stuff. But like, when do you actually call something history? When is it actually when is it like reach the point of, wow, that was a big deal? And we should start documenting this now. And that's exactly what you did when you reached out. I'm plugging the magazine again, TCU Magazine. It was Leslie's brilliant idea to reach out to TCU Magazine and says, hey, me and Laurent are the first Black presidents in student government. And we should probably talk about this right now. And maybe not in 5 years when we're graduated or in 15 years. Why now?
Yeah, so I mean, thanks, Brandon. There are a couple things. I would say do not wait for a big moment to title it history. History is us right now. And when we look back in a couple of years, individuals that we can you hear me? My Wi-Fi seems to be going in and out. Good. Okay. Individuals that will look back on this conversation will call us history. So instead, live in the moment because we are creating history. And so I never want us to miss the opportunity to be in this space where we are sharing thoughts and experiences with the Dr. James Cash, right? It doesn't get any better than that. And don't wait until we're gone or, one day we're called home to say, that person was a good person, or why didn't this person do that? Let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about the barriers to access that we still have to break down at TCU. And so I never want to miss the moment to learn from the opportunity because every opportunity is a learning opportunity. And so I say that to say the reason I reached out is because oftentimes we are categorized or we only fit into a month, which is Black History Month. I want us to talk about this stuff in March. I want us to talk about this in July because Black history is American history. So I want to challenge us to go beyond the 28 days that February offers, right? I want us to talk about these things because us being history is a part of TCU's history. So let's not miss out on the moments where we can progress, even outside of the month of February.
Thank you, Leslie. And Mr. President, Laurent over there. So you're also a big visionary when it comes to storytelling, and you've identified to us that once you graduate, you're hoping to go into the television industry, right? So lots of storytelling there. How will you use this experience as president and as seeing TCU continue to evolve in your career? How will you use that as a springboard for action?
I think that one of the biggest reasons why I want to go into the film and television industry is because it's hard to always feel like you matter or that you are important when you don't see other people like you being important. This year has been such an eye-opening experience having Leslie alongside me because I didn't even think about reaching out to the magazine. I was just like, oh yeah, that just happens. But she was like, no, this is a big deal. This should be celebrated. It should be talked about. And it's that realization that our Blackness is something that is always going to move us forward. It's always going to be something that we need to take a look at because not everyone has that. Not everyone sees that on a regular basis, especially at a school like this. We have, we are a predominantly white school, and that sometimes can shield us from the outside. Excuse me for this light. Give me 1 second.
Man, he's so killer. He's turning the lights off. That's what it is.
I appreciate that. But these moments in time and history are something that we need to get out and forward and put a stakeholder and put a spotlight on. And so I want to utilize my career showing a spotlight and highlighting what it means to be unique, what it means to be diverse, and what those stories mean for so many young people watching. I wish I had watched more content from Black creators when I was younger, instead of some of the more white creators that get to be on the big screen all the time. And so that's what I hope to do in my career.
Thank you. And for Dr. Cash, as you left TCU, evolved into your career, and did all the millions of things that you've done, how have you seen representation? You probably maybe are the first in other areas. How have you continued to stay motivated and to just be that person for someone else?
Very easily, again, because there's so many role models out there. And again, they don't have to be people that are in the national press. As Laurent was just mentioning, it could be people very close to you. And the nice thing is when you live as long as I have, you gain a commitment to perseverance, to resilience, perspective, patience. If you don't mind, then my quick story is when I was at TCU and we made our first trip as a freshman to the University of Arkansas, I had to have a police escort to get into the gym. And I hated the University of Arkansas for a long period of time. God works in mysterious ways. And in 1994, I was invited to the Final Four for the NCAA for what they call their Balfour anniversary team, 25 years after you graduate. Long story short, the team that won the NCAA in 1994 was the University of Arkansas. They had a black coach, Nolan Richardson, and they started 5 black players. So one thing that caught my attention was here I was with hate in my heart all those years for the University of Arkansas, and yet they had progressed farther and faster than a lot of other places around the country. It really dealt a message to me that there are a whole lot of people we can't see that in fact want to make this world a better place, and all we have to do is our part. The end of this story is between 2006 and 2018, I served as the director of the Walmart Corporation. I was on their board of directors. The last 5 years, I served as lead independent director, which meant I had a specific role in their annual meeting. Guess where Walmart held its annual meeting every year? This is the world's largest company by revenue, 500 million bucks, and they hold their annual meeting in the University of Arkansas basketball arena. So I had gone from leading police escort to leading the world's largest company by revenue off of the foundation that TCU provided. I want to be very clear, the opportunity and leverage there. But what it tells you and what I really want to communicate to our audience and to the young people that are on this call with me is whatever you think you're experiencing right now is setting the stage for something bigger for you in the future. No matter how harsh and how bad it may feel, as long as you keep your mind open. For me, it's all captured in Romans chapter 5, verses 1-5, that says you should celebrate in tribulation. And think about how hard that is to do. The tougher it gets, the more you should celebrate, because it's just setting something up for you that's going to be truly outstanding at some point in the future. And you just have to understand that's been our journey. That's the reason history is so important, so that we can develop perspective that, look, the challenges we have are top tier problems. They are not the problems that we were facing 75 years ago. And don't let anybody get you depressed that no matter how crazy some of these things are going on around us, that there aren't a lot more people out there working to make this place a much better world than what we see with the sensationalism on many of the media outlets. Sorry it took so long, but it's so critical, and it's one of the things that I thank my early experience at TCU for providing.
You were preaching, Dr. Cash. Thank you so much.
I love it. And I would say, Dr. Cash, you said it beautifully, but it's bigger than us. It's definitely bigger than us. These positions are bigger than us. And so that's kind of what drives me as well, you know, knowing that I plan and my wish is to continue to open doors for those that look like me, so that we're celebrating the first in many capacities today on the last day of Black History Month. But I no longer want us to be content with celebrating the first.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a great experience. I'm honored to be in so many rooms to represent graduate students in all forms, in different capacities. But I want us to look at this and say, why not more?
Yeah.
Right. And so I even question, and Brandon, you and I were talking about this before. I say this question and I don't take it lightly. And I want to ask the viewers as well as everyone in this room, if moving towards a more anti-racist democracy or a more anti-racist institution depended on you, how close are we?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because when you can take responsibility for where we're going, I think it becomes more personal. I think if it's up to you, you'll do everything in your power to make sure that things are right, because the weight is on you. The responsibility is on you. So I challenge you to take that same responsibility in your work, in the community. My dad preaches this all day long. When we were younger, I have 3 brothers. So, we would fight or we would go after the food first, whatever, you go after the last Oreo. And my dad would always say, why don't you all just love? Why don't y'all just love each other? And we're like, we do. Then why are y'all fighting over that last, whatever you're fighting over, there's more, right? And so at that point, I was like, yeah, but I want the last Oreo. But now I still want the last Oreo. But now the bigger picture to me is take the responsibility. Because I guarantee you, if every single one of us took the responsibility to move towards an anti-racist institution, we'd be a lot more further than maybe where we are. And I think we're doing great things, and I think we have more to do. But I want us to take the onus and the responsibility of moving us forward.
I think exactly correct, Leslie. I think what Dr. James said, he echoed what my parents say on a regular basis. Every single moment is going to lead you to something special down the line, and God has a plan for everyone to get to that level. Leslie, you echoed what also my parents continue to say, is that even though, yes, I fight with my siblings, but sometimes we forget that there is a pie out there, and we always think it's shrinking. We think that people are coming out and trying to take it from us. We have to realize that we can make our own pie. We can have our own table, and we can make things for people like us to live in those spaces and to take that responsibility on an even bigger scale. And as individuals, we have to realize that we can't just rely on other people to do it for us. We have to rely on ourselves to also spearhead that change, to be in those rooms, making those calls, because we know ourselves the best. And when we have that responsibility on ourselves, we will make things change for the better, because we understand that the consequences are way too high to just let someone that doesn't have the passion to make a difference be in charge. And so I think that that's a great challenge for all of us to have, to really see what we can do, how we can be more, how we can take another outreach, how we can make another olive branch out there and make sure that we're uplifting everyone to the same level.
Thank y'all for sharing those. So here's my grounding question, the question that kind of brings it all home, that celebrates and challenges our audience to ponder moving forward. And this question is, what does Black excellence mean to you? Right? That can be at TCU, that can be just in general in life. And before y'all answer that, I just wanted to give a statement because I think it's important. It's on my mind, right? Being a TCU alum, right? Obviously being a Black student myself and navigating my campus. And I want to shout out my mom. She was a Black first in her own right. She was one of the first 5 Black TCU showgirls. So Mom, I love you. Proud of you that you made history as well. But in terms of students navigating a college experience, actually at a TCU, right, it can be hard to determine what is excellence. Is there a standard? Is there a certain checklist I have to do to be considered great, right? Some people get bogged down on, I need to join this organization, I need to have this GPA, and I need to be in this major, and I need to, and the list can go on, and it gets exhausting. 1, physically, and 2, mentally, because you weren't meant to be anyone else. You were born to be you. And so there can be things that might help you or that might be worthwhile, but it's all to create you and build you, shape you to become the best individual. So to those watching, if you're a TCU student right now, Don't be intimidated by those before or above you. If you're an underclassman, look to the upperclassmen for guidance, but don't be a cookie cutter mold of what they are, because you're going to drive yourself mad. You really will. Just focus on each day being great, being phenomenal, showing up, ready to go, and that's what I did. And I think maybe that's why TCU gives you chances to come into conversations like these. I love the ability to come and do that. But to me, that's what Black excellence means to me. Is going down each day and giving it your best. So I'll yield to whoever wants to go.
Yeah, I think that one thing that always comes.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
That always comes to mind when I think of Black excellence is that we always have to kind of prove ourselves. I know that throughout my life, I've always felt like I have to prove myself time and time again to my white counterparts in classes, outside, out in extracurriculars, and everything like that. Because, as people say, we always have to go 2 times harder to just get half of what other people have. And so I think that Black excellence really boils down into that spirit inside you to really just prove yourself and show your worth in every situation, because people won't just give that to you. People won't recognize that innate thing that makes you special, that you have in yourself. And so really leaning into that, being who you are, being authentically the person that you've been made to be, never shying away from that is really when your excellence will shine.
I think for me, Black excellence is you without doubt. Because I think when doubt creeps in, you forget who you are. And so oftentimes, then you do start comparing yourself. Then you do feel the need to prove yourself worthy to be in spaces or capacities in which you need to serve. Black excellence is me. Black excellence is everyone in this room. Black excellence is me without doubt, because me without doubt, I'm unstoppable. And so to me, removing the doubt is solely connected to Black excellence. So even to the viewers out there, I know, Brandon, you talk to the students. I challenge everyone to understand that Black excellence makes us one, right? It's solely tied to Black joy as well. And Black joy is the result of no doubt. And so I challenge people to really take a deeper dive, even outside, once again, of these 28 days, to understand Black excellence. It takes a lot. My dad would say, pull up your britches. You got to go. You got to do these things, because someone out there is counting on you to do these things, to make room for them with one less barrier that they will have to overcome. So imagine if I take the ownership, the onus, the responsibility in understanding that. I don't know about you, but I can't let the person coming after me down, knowing that their capacity and their success may lie in my hands. So I have to remove the doubt, even on the days that, doubt creeps in, and it's there to stay, right? For me, my goal and my wish is you will never be able to see that doubt again.
Leslie, that's really inspiring. It just reminds me that it's hard to love others if you don't love yourself. And what you're describing is really that foundational element of loving yourself. When I hear about Black excellence, I think of a couple of things. One, I feel so blessed to be Black, because in a predominantly white world, I am differentiated without ever having to open my mouth or say or do anything. And if you ever kind of step out of your own shoes for a second and take a look at how hard some others have to work to try and be differentiated in the environments that they're operating in, it's a real blessing to actually have that differentiation built in. I think of Black excellence in terms of just quality and excellence. And, for me, quality is never an accident. it's always the result of, first of all, high intention, which you're hearing from, again, Leslie and Laurent. Sincere effort, intelligent direction, and certainly skillful execution. And because of the experiences that so many of us have as African Americans, we develop instincts that are far more context sensitive than many others. And so we're gifted, if we just permit it to happen, to be able to execute in really unique and special ways. The last thing I say is a little phrase that I read somewhere that really struck me. And it's that excellence is really obtained when you care more than others think is wise, when you're willing to risk more than others think is safe, when you're willing to dream more than others think is practical, and when you expect more than others think possible. So as I sit here and listen to the challenge that Leslie and Brenda are providing us, all I can say is, boy, was my time at TCU so well worth it if it in any way contributed to these outstanding young people. And you too, Brandon, even though I got to talk to you about the SMU thing, man. That's hard. That's hard for an old horned frog.
Yeah, but I have long visions of coming back to TCU one day. I'm live.
It was worth every bit of it. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with these inspirational folks. And obviously, I'd be happy to follow up with anyone who wants it otherwise.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Cash. And that was my last formal question. I want to be mindful of time. So if I'll check this chat here, if we have any questions. But while I check the chat, I want to just open the floor again to all three of you to provide any final words, anything that's just really beaming on your mind that you'd like to say as we conclude tonight's event.
For me, I'm just so happy to be in history right now, in history, right? I'm so grateful for the space that was created. Dr. James Cash, thank you for paving the way for thank you for paving the way for me and Laurent to be where we are today. And then also, Brandon, thank you for cultivating the space in order for us to talk about, our experiences and what is to come and what to expect out of our presidency. So thank you, Brandon, for facilitating this conversation.
You're welcome, Leslie.
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for having us have this inspiring space to be. Dr. Cash, thank you so much for coming in with so much wise word. And then Leslie, the person I've been going to on a 24/7 basis, thank you again for always just proving time and time again why you're so wonderful. So much thank you for Brandon for, the amazing article that you wrote and being just such a friend. I would say that TCU has come a long way and there's still a lot longer place that we have to go. I hope that we celebrate the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th Black student by president, graduate student presidents. I know that we have a bunch of firsts to continue to get to, but we need to get to them quick. we have to get to them quickly so we can continue to show what we all have out there. We have so many different unique perspectives and different things that we bring to the table, and it's time that we are at that table. So thank you so much, Brandon, for all you've done. Yes.
Laurent, anything from Dr. Cash?
Oh, no, look, these two have said it all. So I'm just going to kick it back to you, Brandon. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, of course, in closing, I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight to attend this amazing event. I'm just so inspired to continue working and doing all the great things and to be a role model for somebody else. I've accepted the torch and I'm going to keep carrying it just like these wonderful individuals are doing as well. So Black is beautiful and Black is gold. I wanted to say that. That's my tagline for tonight. I want to give last acknowledgments and special thanks to our guests, of course, Dr. James Cash, Leslie Ekpe, and Laurent Honeycutt, and our partners, TCU Magazine. Please be sure to check out the magazine. You can look at it virtually at magazine.tcu.edu. And if you're an alum, you get a wonderful copy. I want to thank TCU Alumni Association. I want to thank the Office of Social Media Engagement and, of course, the university for allowing us to have this platform through StreamYard, through Facebook, and through YouTube. Be sure to stay in touch with the TCU Alumni Association at alumni.tcu.edu and on Horned Frog Connect. And finally, this is literally a freestyle, but I wanted to leave on this powerful quote by Frederick Douglass. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Y'all have an outstanding night. Take care. And as always, go Frogs.
Frog.